Hello and welcome back to Tornado CS. In this video I will be explaining how to make a class with a constructor, some getter and setter methods, as well as a child class and the run class if I have enough time. So first up, go ahead and open your editor, Eclipse, and we are going to create a new class. If you don't remember how to do that, it's alright, it's quite simple. Just make sure you have your project highlighted. In the top left, you will see a little drop down that says New. Go ahead and open the drop down, click Class, and we can create a new Java class. We are going to name our class Person, and we do not want to create a main method. You'll see why later, but for now, make sure this is unchecked, and go ahead and click Finish. So now we have our new class Person. So a class Person will have a constructor to create a person object. It will have class variables that describe some properties of a person object, and will have several methods that can either retrieve or change these variables. So first up, we're going to create our class variables. A person will have several properties or attributes. So one example would be a person's height. So we can put private double height. So the reason that this variable here is private is so that it cannot be accessed outside of this class. We don't want anybody else messing with our height variable here. Only what we do in this class Person. And we declared it as double because a person's height is usually has a decimal, or a foot and an inch. So next, a person has an age, so we can put private int age. A person has a name, private string name, and then we can say a person does or doesn't like pizza. So we can say private boolean likes pizza, because a person either true likes pizza or false likes pizza. Now that we have some class variables, we can make our constructor. The constructor for a class will create objects of type whatever you named your class. So this would create objects of type person, similar to how this creates an object of type double. And the constructor will initiate these variables to whatever values you have passed it. So we are going to say public person, and then we'll have to put some parameters in there, but this is our constructor. So right here, you need to make sure this is public so that the constructor can be accessed from anywhere in your project, and the name of the constructor must match the name of your class. So up here we have person. This must say person. Now we need to pass it some parameters. We need to tell the constructor what to set for each of these variables up here. Alternatively, you could not do that. You could have something that is called a no argument constructor. A no argument constructor will automatically set all of the values without being passed any parameters. So it could say that height will be equal to 0, age will be equal to 0, name will be equal to, sorry, I can't type today, null, and likes pizza will be equal to false. Now, you could have a no argument constructor if, for example, later in the program, you will be setting these values. But for purposes here, we are going to add some parameters to our constructor. So go ahead and delete these values, and up here in between these two parentheses is where we put our parameters for the constructor. We will need to have a parameter for each of these variables, and the type of those parameters has to match the variable that it will be setting. So for height, we need to have a parameter that is of type double, and we'll just say h for height. You can put anything you want here. Only thing is it cannot be equal to this name here. The editor does not like that. Next, we will have an int for age, we will have a string for name, and a boolean for likes pizza. And then down here in the constructor, we have to say that height will be equal to whatever the value of h is, h will be equal to the value of a, name will be equal to the value of n, and likes pizza will be equal to the value of lp. So that right there is our constructor. If you were to go to another class within your project and say person x equals new person and pass it these parameters, it will create a person object whose height is h, age is a, name is n, and likes pizza is lp. So next, for our class, we need to have some getter and setter methods. Getter and setter methods will return the value of one of our class variables or change the value of one of our class variables. So our first one will be public double get height, and then inside we will put return height. So parts of this getter method here, we have public, so it can be accessed from other classes so that other classes can run this method. We have double because that is the type return, and then our name here, get height. You don't have to put get height, you could put whatever you want here. It's just much simpler to say get height because that's what our method does. And then within the method, you would simply say return height so that when this method is run, it will return the height of the object it is called on. Then next, you write the rest of the getter methods. So we would need one for the age. So public get int get age, return age, public string get name, return name, and public boolean likes pizza, return likes pizza. And another thing is, the name of these methods can be the same as the name of these variables. That is entirely acceptable. So now we have our getter methods for each of our variables. Now we will have setter methods because a person's height can change, a person's age can change, a person's name can change. So maybe we want to change the values of those. So to write a setter method, you say public void set height, and then height equals h. And I forgot, but we need to have a parameter here to set our height to. So now, if we were to run method set height, it will change the value of height to whatever we put in here. And this method must be void because it doesn't return anything, it simply changes a value. And then we can write our setter methods for the other variables. Age, we can do one for name, and we can do one for likes pizza. So another thing I would like to point out, you may notice that we have two methods called likes pizza. Well, how would the program know which one to run when we call to it? This is something called overloading in Java. And what it means is two methods can have the same name but be passed different parameters. So because our getter method likes pizza does not take a parameter, but the setter method likes pizza does, it's acceptable because they are two different methods that will be called to in two different ways. The same can happen with a constructor. Our constructor here is called person. We can make another constructor called person, but if it takes different parameters, it's okay. That the editor will know which one to call based on what you put in. If I were to put 4 parameters in that were of the same type as before, it will be unhappy because it says duplicate method. 2 methods exist that take a double, an int, a string, and a boolean within the class person. So if I were to change this and simply get rid of boolean, you'll see that it's acceptable because now 2 different methods exist. We can delete that other constructor and scroll back down. Now we have our 4 getter or accessor methods and our 4 setter methods. Our person class is now done. Next, I'm going to create a child class for person. So to do that, go ahead and just make another class within the project, and I'm going to call that class student because a person can be a student. So again, no main method and click finish. With a child class, you have to extend it from the parent class. To do that, you would type extends and then the name of the parent class. Ours is person. So public class student extends class person. Now you see this error here that says implicit superconstructor person is undefined for default constructor. That is because we don't have a constructor in our student class yet. Our student will contain an extra variable that we're going to call grade. So a student will be in a grade level, so we will say private int grade. And then our student will have its own constructor, so public, student, and then we gotta pass it 5 parameters. 4 to create the person, and then a 5th for the grade. So we will have double H, int A, string N, boolean LP, and int G for the height, the age, the name, likes pizza, and grade. And then don't forget the braces. As you can see, now the error disappeared because we have a constructor, but we need to add in here super. What super does is it will take these 4 variables here and put them into a person constructor to initialize those 4 variables. So we can say super HANLP. And that tells the program to go and look at the constructor from the parent class, which is person, and use the constructor that takes the double, int, string, and boolean and initialize those variables to these values. And then we will also need to initialize grade as G. And that there is our student constructor. Now we will also need to have getter and setter methods for our grade. So we can do public int get grade and return grade, and then public void set grade, and we need to pass it an int and grade will equal G. So now our student constructor with its new getter and setter methods is completed, and that is all the time I have for this video. So in the next one, I will make our run class and go over a few other things. Thanks for watching.